Over the years, perks have been a staple to zombies, but their evolution has made some perks incredibly overpowered. Some perks removed then used as a joke for maps. Permanent perks that were not even permanent, and a whole system of upgrades that changes the way zombies is even played. Today we're going to talk about the evolution of perks in COD Zombies, from World at War all the way to Black Ops 6, which has so many changes it could be its own video. So let's begin with World at War, a surface level perk system. But what if I told you that the very first map didn't even have perks at all? Noctur Untoten was a bonus map, and originally a Nazi tower defense mode with the thought that Hitler would be found at the end of it all. The map was simple, it was easy, it was spooky, and it nailed atmosphere more than anything else. But that all changed with the map Verrückt. Juggernog increased a player's hits taken, from 2 all the way to 5. Quick Revive doubled the revive timer. Speed Cola was able to give you double the reload time, and Double Tap was to speed up the rate of fire by 33%. Perks were meant to be another power-up the way that drops were, a way to open up the map and add layers to the gameplay. But as the perks were added, so too were the zombies' intensity. Verrückt is often regarded as one of the hardest maps of all time for this reason, as Treyarch overtuned the zombies' aggression and made runner zombies that could outspeed the player, resulting in a horrific experience. But what if I told you that Juggernog was changed after this first iteration? Juggernog originally added a bonus to health regeneration on top of its now known perk of increasing your health, and it's often called bugged on this map for this reason. This would be changed right after. Sometimes with Jug, you could receive way more hits, resulting in clips like this. Chino Numa just made the perk locations different every time, while Darice added the best perk of all time called Ammo-matic. For 10,000 points, you could buy max ammo from the machine. Well, at least this was the case until it was cut from the game. See, sometimes guaranteeing easier runs by just buying ammo takes away from the fun of zombies. At least in World at War, this was the thought. But Pack-a-Punch would be argued to be the best perk of all time. See, every gun gets upgraded, and Pack-a-Punch is a perk machine so strong that it usually has a quest in order to be unlocked, upgrading the damage of your weapon, giving it a fresh coat of Pack-a-Punch paint, and generally giving high round players a chance. You could argue that Pack-a-Punch isn't a perk, but it fits all the descriptions of one, just for one weapon at a time. But what do you think? Leave me a comment. Black Ops launched by playing things safe, and at launch the only real change was with Quick Revive on solo play. Quick Revive now allowed solo players to have the chance to buy Revive for 500 points, and no power needed to be turned on using the machine, essentially giving you 3 total chances to revive yourself if knocked down. One thing you can't argue about is the addition of perks in Black Ops Zombies, since this game added 1 perk on almost every single DLC map. Ascension even added 2, with the staples to the series PhD Flopper and Stamina Up opening up the gameplay further. Flopper not only gave you radioactive dolphin diving toots, but no fall damage and no self-explosive damage finally made your Pack-a-Punch starting pistol, Mustang and Sally, a threat to zombies and not yourself. Stamina Up gave faster sprint recovery, faster speed, and longer stamina on the sprinting, making zombie trains all that much easier to run. But it wasn't all pretty. See, Deadshot Daiquiri was added in Call of the Dead, and it's one of the more divisive perks simply because of the faults outside of its own control. See, Call of Duty limits how many perks you could have to 4, and it was typically always the standard to run Jug, Speed Cola, Flopper, and either Stamina Up or Quick Revive. So where did that leave both Double Tap and Deadshot Daiquiri? Double Tap was hated due to it only increasing the rate of fire, but not the damage, meaning that you would be wasting more ammo than reburying those pesky zombies. But Deadshot Daiquiri was more like a console-only perk, as it reduced recoil and the spread of hipfire on mouse and keyboard, while doing all of that and making you aim at zombies' heads by default instead of bodies if you were on a controller. It would take all the way until Black Ops 4, almost 10 years later, to see this perk get the proper evolution it deserved, combining with another perk that we mentioned before. But that's to say that there might have been too many perks for COD's own good. And how do you give all of the players all of them without making the mode a pushover? Shangri-La is the answer. This map didn't have a new perk, but it did have the ability to gain all of the perks if you completed its tricky, puzzle-filled Easter egg, which you can watch a full video on the world's first on my channel for. The only annoying part of this was having to run it 4 times in a row for every single player to get all of the perks, but they were permanent, meaning that if you went down and you were revived, you would still have them. This concept carried over to Moon's Easter egg as well, but Moon added a perk that would retroactively be added to all of the Black Ops maps called Mule Kick. This gave you a third weapon, which sounds great, but this perk was also a real danger, as your third weapon was disposable if you went down, since losing the perk meant losing that extra gun, and getting the perk again didn't return it. Black Ops 2 was the weirdest game to cover in this video, simply because Black Ops 2 added too much, at least at launch. On the pure evolution side, Black Ops 2 made double tap a perk worth having, updating its symbol and making double tap go from firing 33% faster to firing 2 bullets at once, effectively doubling its damage. But what if Black Ops 2 decided that it was done with making temporary perks and instead focused on a system of permanent perks, a system where regular perks were bought and perma perks were used as objectives to complete in order to earn them? This sounds great in concept, but they were the furthest thing from permanent, and they weren't clear at all. Imagine being level 1 on Zombie's brand new rank system and picking up the Olympia off the wall, only for it to be a ray gun. That's cool until you level up and it's gone, and you had no clue why this interaction even happened. Imagine then that you could get the new perk to Black Ops 2 named Tombstone, but permanent. This perk was so complicated. So Tombstone worked that if you went down and you died by using the perk, you could pick up a tombstone and get every perk but Tombstone. But if you were revived instead, then you lost all of your perks. This rewarded dying, which was just not good design. But you could get this quote unquote permanently. Just follow this massive list of requirements and don't accidentally lose the perk in the process or utilize a time bomb from buried. Tombstone would be in a way updated with the Who's Who perk on the map Die Rise, a perk built in as insurance for the definite falls players would take on this map. You became a spooky ghost and rezzed yourself. Now I will add that there was a Tombstone glitch in which you could go down and die with your 4 perks, then buy the other perks that you didn't have, then pick up your Tombstone and have those original perks but with the new ones. But a glitch isn't intentional to the perk's identity, and being known as the glitch perk doesn't really help your reputation either. Juggernog even had a perma perk upgrade, but again, it rewarded poor gameplay. Fully dying 3 times before round 3 gave 90 extra HP, and could be paired with a super version of Juggernog if you grabbed the regular perk too. The major downside to this was that at round 15, the perma jug went away, so if you went down with your super jug, you just lost the perma version of it. Perma perks would thankfully only stay and then leave with the Victus crew of characters, and although they were an evolution of the series, I think a lot of players found them confusing and not beneficial enough, even deeming them a de-evolution. But none were a de-evolution more than the loss of PhD Flopper. This perk was only officially in one main Black Ops 2 map, and was teased in multiple others, with being a gimmick in one of them. Wouldn't it have made sense for Die Rise, a map focused on vertical landscapes with skyscrapers, to have PhD Flopper? Well, Treyarch decided to put it on the map, in a spot that you can't reach, then decided to follow that up with Flopper outside of a map and deactivated on Mob of the Dead, but available in the Grief mode version of the map for some reason, only for it to make a return as a perma perk in Buried. Flopper has been its own wild story throughout the years, since the main portions that make it strong are in essence carried by the movement systems in the game. When dolphin diving was removed with Black Ops 3, there wasn't even a reason to have Flopper's main perk anymore. That's not to say that there wasn't another couple of perks added that boost the zombies' experience though, with Electric Cherry becoming one of the new staples. This was added on Mob of the Dead, and dealt electric damage on reloading, used for situations of being surrounded by hordes of zombies and desperately trying to stave enough to reload. Cherry was a grace, and flowed well on the narrow pathing and metal jail cells of Alcatraz, as the passive damage and stunning them for a quick escape while running trains and reloading made Cherry a very effective damage permeance that gave it real impact to zombies, and it stunned them long enough so you could get away. This was the first perk to have real impact since PhD Flopper and Stamina Up were introduced. Buried was supposed to be the end of the Victus storyline and the end of Jimmy Zielinski running the direction of zombies, but it had a perk that would never return to any Call of Duty map ever. This was called Vulture Aid, and it offered a ton of traits that felt a little hypocritical to zombies. For starters, Vulture Aid had chances for ammo and points to drop on the ground from dead zombies, which was something that Annyamada was removed for, as the intensity of zombies is removed when you can just get ammo. Some zombies would leave behind a fart cloud that by standing in it would make other zombies just outright ignore you. It was a unique idea, but again, it made zombies feel a little too easy. This was especially the case with the wonder weapon Paralyzer, which allowed the ammo from Vulture Aid to give 5% extra charge to the gun, and the Stink Cloud, which allowed time for the Paralyzer to cool down so you could have fresh charge ready to go. It allowed camping and easy play with an infinite ammo wonder weapon. The final part that made this perk gimmicky was the zombie eyes portion of it, making you see machines, wall buys, the box, and more through the walls very easily. This was in service to Buried's Easter egg steps, involving a hard to see spark, but the rest of the perk might have just been in service of Buried's easy flowing design. Should Vulture Aid make a return though? Leave me a comment. Perma perks were added and removed. Perks were added and removed. But with Jason Blundell taking over Call of Duty Zombies officially after Buried, everything changed. Origins added all sorts of innovations that made zombies better. One of them was the challenges around the map, an evolution of permaperks to gain some perks like double tap and speed cola from completing them, even alongside with an extra perk slot upgrade. But the Wonder Fizz was the main evolution added. Instead of spinning the box for 950 points, you could spin the perk machine for 1500, which was a bargain if you got lucky for something like Juggernog being at a discount. This was also how PhD Flopper became available on a main map in Black Ops 2 for the first time. Now, it wasn't the best on Origins, but it was here, and it wouldn't be back again for a while. Wonder Fizz would carry into Black Ops 3, which didn't add much evolution to perks aside from a small buff to Electric Cherry and the addition of Widow's Wine. Widow's Wine was one of the best perks of all time though, and was rightfully expensive for it. Getting hit caused zombies to be covered in spider webs, and your grenade changed into what I call Green Goblin Bombs. You had to pick up the Widow's Wine symbol to get charges back, but this perk saved so many runs. Black Ops 3 was an easier base game in general than previous entries, and it focused on building on what was working more than anything. You could argue that it was in service of the crazier and more complex map design, like I don't think Widow's Wine would fit into Shinonuma or Doris, but it definitely would be needed while fending off Margwas and the Shadow Man on Shadows of Evil. It's why it's considered the gold standard to vets of zombies, but in the evolution of perks department, not much else was added. Wonder Fizz stayed, Gobblegums made it so getting perks was easier than ever with additions like Perkaholic. For real money, or earnable, you could get all of the perks on the map instantly with one chew of gum. The limit was 4 perks, yet with this, you could have them all instantly. You could get way more with gamer subs if you use code Evan at checkout too, but that's for the link down below and not for this. If we are to say that Pack-a-Punch is a perk, then Black Ops 3 added traits to double-packed weapons like turning a zombie into an ally, turning a zombie into fireworks, electricity, and the Thunder Gun. These were all abilities added with double-packed weapons in Black Ops 3. BO2 just added new scopes for this investment. Although the next 3 entries in the COD franchise were not developed by Treyarch, they each had evolutions to perks that I think are worth mentioning. Infinite Warfare was a fresh coat of paint on a Black Ops 3 format of zombies. Perks were no longer in bottles. They were candy, and they were refundable if you thought they tasted like poo. The big push for every game after Black Ops 3 was to make perks open up customization more than just build on what was before. In this game, the perk limit was now 5 instead of 4, and the only new perks were Change Chews, which were more like double Pack-a-Punch without doing that. Advanced Warfare added a system called Perk Decay. This made it so that while you were down, you wouldn't lose your perks immediately. They would just slowly decay until you fully died. If you were instantly rezzed, then your perks stayed. This became a mainstay for future entries after this game, and while Advanced Warfare didn't didn't have a ton of evolution on the perk side, it at least added this. And World War II just got rid of Juggernog, but then added armor plates, which was something future games would implement in general. Armor in this game essentially gave you Jug since you got 3 extra hits with it on, but at the trade-off that it would only go down when the player took lethal damage. And as you continued to buy armor, it became more expensive. This definitely added to World War II's horror aspect and the dread that the game was known for, but in terms of perks, this trade-off of price increasing would come back in some ways in the future. But that's all to say that these were minor experiments, while Black Ops 4 was the grand experiment, the next paradigm shift. Hell, everything changed in this game. There was a full focus on player customization here, from loadouts, specialist weapons, equipment builds, everything was to break the predictable flow of the zombies map formula. Black Ops 4 is often cited as doing too much. Instead of every perk having their own custom machine, it changed to the brew machine, the tonic machine, etc. The game sacrificed identity for customization, which really hurt this game's feel, but the perk evolution, I would argue at least on paper, made a lot of sense. For example, you could only have 4 perks to start, but there were other ways to get perks, like Gobblegums returning with gums to get more perks. There was also perk rain upgrades, which were an evolution of the upgrade system in general to award perks. So the perk machine stayed in the same spots, but the perks for those machines was able to be changed depending on your build. When the player purchased all 4 of their perks, whatever their perk was in the 4th slot became supercharged, getting a small extra feature. Each perk had their own buff, but you would also gain speed cola when the modifier slot became active. This was a slot modifier, and a bonus for attaining your perks. You could also just take 4 hits by default now, instead of the 3 that Black Ops 3 awarded. And yet again, Jug was removed, but it was around in other ways. See, Quick Revive was given the Verruck Jug treatment, allowing for fast regen on health. Hell, Jug wasn't the only thing gone. Speed Cola, which we talked about before, was indirectly here, but Double Tap was also indirectly here. The idea was to remove crutch perks, but still have some semblance of them in other places, like level progression unlocking perks instead of them being placed in a spot on a map. This does mean that there is a ton of perks in this game that would take so long to go over that this video would be as large as a Black Ops 4 map like Blood of the Dead. But we can still talk about some, right? Veterans of World at War who wanted to play a defensive build could opt for Stone Cold Stronghold, which made standing still spawn a ring around you, giving you more armor and damage until you left the circle. Victorious Tortoise let you pull out the shield, but it's full body armor now, and when it broke, it created an explosion. Deadshot Daiquiri had all of the base perk, but with a modifier to give bonus damage on headshot streaks, and another new perk, Bandolier Bandit, which was really Ammomatic 2.0 and gave more ammo. The problem here was that when Treyarch removed crutch perks like Jug and Speed Cola, the next best perks in this game became crutches. So this didn't really fix the core issue of limiting the player. Plus, you could still unlock these perks indirectly. There was just still better perks than others. And of course, the perks that you just had to have, like Quick Revive for the regen, and Stamina, because again, these maps were gigantic. Dying Wish was new, but almost a necessary insurance. You would get lethally hit, and you had 9 seconds to just run away with invincibility. I think that this system was too bloated, and didn't balance perks well enough to let the playstyles work, but it's something that the series would evolve in some way. Should the Black Ops 4 perk system of choice come back though? Leave me a comment. Treyarch would continue to test ways to make perks more customizable in the future, but they would basically abandon Black Ops 4's systems, which is a shame. It had potential, it just needed updates in my opinion. Cold War made yet another massive shift, and instead of giving you a cool intro, we're just going to talk about how perks may have gone too far with evolutions. Ethereum crystals were the new currency in this game for zombies. You would be able to buy permanent tiered upgrades for perks, but they were too strong in an already easier zombies game. The original perks returned with some upgrades. You had the armor from World War II, but instead of giving you extra hits, it would also give you damage resistance, but the tier system was the issue. For example, you could get Mule Kick to tier 2 and pick up ammo boxes from zombies, which would be like Vulture Aid, but instead of a small amount of ammo, you get a variation, and a lot more than Vulture Aid ever had. Jug's tier 5 upgrade would give you Dying Wish perk from Black Ops 4. Speed Cola could give you the perk Time Slip, speeding up interactions like how fast the box gave you a weapon and field upgrade charges. You could also have infinite perks. Maybe it's because these were sodas this time instead of candies or bottles. I'm gonna go with GamerSupps using code Evan again, personally. Revive was back, but this time you could use the currency in the game to preload however many revives that you really wanted. Meaning that if you died solo, you could just infinitely come back, which was a massive oversight. There was a complete 180 from Black Ops 4, almost like Treyarch was afraid to ever touch the game's ideas or expand on them. It's a shame too, because while Cold War had so much potential, it's limited by making everything just average. The idea was that perks got more expensive each time you bought one, so instead of Jug being 2,500, all perks started out at this price, but then would increase 500 per purchase. But when the game itself was so easy that an unpacked weapon could bring you to around 935, prices didn't really matter, even if zombies awarded less points on average. This is where Vanguard comes in with a better idea for upgrades. They were tied to game upgrades for tiers instead. This sounds better, but the problem was that you never kept progression if you went down, and there was no perk deterioration like in Advanced Warfare, so buying up everything to be upgraded was just lame. I should mention that Pack-a-Punch began to work like this too, from Black Ops 4 onwards, except you got to keep your weapon damage unlike perks. Pack-a-Punch with all these upgrades just kept getting more expensive. Black Ops 4, it cost 15k for max damage, while Cold War and Vanguard cost 70k. That's so much. Vanguard even continued the legacy of Cold War. By earning the in-game currency, you could use this to load yourself up with solo revive and have infinite solo revives. This was an oversight that just never got fixed. Black Ops 6 is the newest one in the franchise and the most modern update that we have for this video. The one that looks to, on paper, evolve perks in the most meaningful way. The augment system looks like a culmination of Black Ops 4, Cold War, and Vanguard systems. Gobblegums are back, loadouts are back, perk limits are back, but with the augment system, it looks like Zombies has put emphasis on builds like Black Ops 4 again. Yes, these could be considered upgrades, but they're low barriers to entry, and you can only have 2 augments per perk, and they change how the game works from the ground up. Time will have to tell us how everything ends, but from the start of no perks all the way to full-on loadouts and builds of perks with their own upgrades, it's clear that Zombies has evolved its perks over the years. Hopefully, Black Ops 6 is the evolution the community wants, and hopefully you enjoyed my deep dive into perks once and for all. Please show this video some love if you enjoyed it. I will see you for some Zombies coverage here and on Twitch. Have yourself a wonderful day or night.